All right, welcome to Till Talks with Chris White, where we talk TILs, tumor infiltrating lymphocytes, and all advanced cell and gene therapies, both with patients and caregivers, along with industry leaders. Let's get going. As a reminder, I am not a medical professional or medical expert. I am only a professional and expert on my story and my experience. If you are needing or seeking medical advice or assistance, please reach out to your care team. And we're rolling. What's up, guys?
What's going on, Chris?
Good
How
to
are
see
you?
you, Chris.
I am cool as a fan. I'm ecstatic as hell to have both of y'all on today. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome you to the gentleman from Bio to Bedside. We got Ben and we got Jeff. So I'm just going to go ahead and let y'all give a little introduction and background about yourselves, and then we'll start getting into it.
Jeff.
Ben, you can go first.
Oh, I was going to say beauty for age. All right. Yeah.
I have both of those things on you, I think.
Yeah. My name. Sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
Go ahead. So yeah, give us a little background, where you're from and how you got into the world of cellular therapies.
Great question. Yeah. So I'm a Canadian. So apologies in advance for all the socialism we've got up here. Jeff is constantly bugging me about that.
That's funny.
But yeah.
Move to Buffalo.
It's just a border
Yeah.
Yeah.
and a
So
waterfall.
that's right. So I've started my journey inside of kind of the advanced therapy space actually on the gene therapy side. So if we go back to the year that we all remember oh so well with such fond memories, 2020, I was just finishing up my grad degree, and then everything that happened, and I was all set to be going into a lab to do some work on gene therapy vectors. And then that got canceled because you couldn't do anything in person and everything had to be online. But then fortuitously, thank God, once my internship had finished up, which was part of my master's degree that I was doing at the time, I was able to go back to that lab. And actually, my first job was doing upstream and downstream production of gene therapy vectors with applications into COVID, but then also for a really interesting application called vectored immunoprophylaxis, which is a massive mouthful. But basically,
Mouthful.
what it means is instead of giving someone an antibody and then they're able to fight the whatever the problem is, you give them a gene therapy vector that encodes for the antibody, and therefore you've kind of got like this sustained expression of this antibody that's really important. So the application for that at the time was actually like really difficult hospital infections where you have these different like older people or immunocompromised people whose immune system is there but it's not very good, and so if you just kind of give them the sustained ability to recognize common hospital infections, they're way less likely to get sick and die. So that was pretty cool. Did that for the first year and a half or so of my career, and then slowly came to the dark side of industry and started posting on LinkedIn back in 22. I mostly got pity likes around the office to start. That scaled a little
That's how
bit
it always
since
starts,
then.
Ben.
Yeah, that's how it always starts.
Pity likes. Love it.
The pity like was my mom. And my wife when I could convince her
Mhm.
it was a good idea. And since then have been able to build a bit of a following on LinkedIn and now use
A bit.
A bit. I was getting 3 years on LinkedIn with 30,000 plus followers.
33,000.
Are you kidding me? Dude, don't undersell yourself.
there are people who have done better. But anyway, at this point now, what I do for work is helping different biotech companies, specifically inside of the cell and gene therapy space, develop out their whole strategy around LinkedIn. It's a really effective way to build a lot of trust and generate inbound leads. And so that's kind of what I do on a day in and day out is help these different companies build executive led profiles on LinkedIn that build trust, generate leads, and allow the world to learn more about the company and the cool science that you're working on.
That is fantastic because within that short amount of time, you've been able to create such a following, but like your enthusiasm just freaking bleeds through the net. I mean, and I met you in person, and so it blows me away on how ecstatic that someone can get into this field and grow that amount of success in that short a time. And the way you explain when you're talking about cellular therapies throughout your content is just it's incredible, and I'm all about it. Jeff, go ahead and give us the 101 on you and your background.
Yeah, so I will say that your description of Ben as being ecstatic is exactly my first impression as well. I think that we have this little bout of bedside show, and I think that I'm the science guy. I'll get into that, but Ben is like he was made to be on TV. I think he has the jawline
Yeah,
for it and the
he's an
personality
anchor.
for it. Yeah, yeah. So we'll see where that goes. I wouldn't be surprised if you were on like, Fox and Friends in 5 years, 10 years. But yeah, and so my name's Jeff Martin. Where do I start? So I was born and raised in Buffalo, New York, probably about an hour south of Bend, maybe an hour and a half south of Bend, and got my PhD at Roswell Park Cancer Center. It's the first cancer center to ever open in the country, and I think that Roswell Park is like a guy's name. I think that he like treated some president's cancer back in the day. I don't know. He's like a very famous scientist. So the hospital started after him. I got my PhD over there in cancer genetics, technically speaking, but I did a lot of like innate immunity stuff with like sting signaling and replication stress and synergistic therapeutic strategies in cancer, mainly looking at like childhood bone sarcomas, like Ewing sarcoma. Did a lot of like fusion protein biology work. And then I got a postdoc job at Roswell, did some more innate immunity stuff. And then me and my wife, she got pregnant and we moved to Roanoke to have the baby around her family. And I got a job at Virginia Tech doing some CAR T cell work in glioblastoma. And I got to be honest with you, the entire time in lab from like my second or third year in my PhD up until I quit, thankfully, I hated it. I really like science and I don't want to go into a big huge like monologue about like the difference between like it's so I use the analogy of this. A lot of scientists are like architects. So if you look at
Yeah.
like the construction world, a lot of scientists want to be like architects, but to get to the architect position, you have to be a bricklayer for like 20 years, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
I go to school, I want to be an architect. I think about building design and I think about like drawing, buildings out. And then I get my first job and all I do all day long is like lay bricks and put up drywall for 10 years. And it's like, this is just not what I want to do. And I again, I don't want to go like too into the into the weeds, but it got to a point where talking about the science in lab was like weird. If you
Yeah.
talked about like, oh well, T cells do this, like this signaling pathway doesn't, to do the experiment like this isn't going to make sense because of this signaling pathway. It's like it was like taboo. It became like the thing you talk about in lab is like what is the temperature of the whatever when you melt your gels, and like how long do I incubate my cells for, and what is the concentration of the buffer in my media. It's like this is just not what I want to be doing. So about a year and a half ago, I began posting on LinkedIn just like Ben did. And again, at first, it was mostly pity likes, like my lab mates and my mom, right, would like your post. But over the course of like 5 or 6 months, I went from nothing to about 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. And then it gets interesting. Then it's like really fun. And I ended up, long story short, I ended up turning my passion for science and like figure generation and scientific communication into a full blown scientific communication and science branding company that I now call Flight, Flyte. And I work mainly with super early stage, gritty startups in oncology, mainly cell therapy, a lot of like natural killer cell therapies, neutrophil cell therapies in oncology. And I help them establish their message, get their branding going. And then I also learn how to make websites, and I became a slide deck designer. So I do like the whole package. And it's interesting because a lot of people who do that stuff aren't scientists. So you got to bring in like the
Yeah.
scientific team and stuff. But I know the science sometimes better than the actual founding team does. So I can come in, get the science, give you a nice message, and then make your deck, make your website. So it's kind of like my day job. But then at night, me and Ben do this bow to bedside thing, which is super fun. And we see a lot of potential in that too. So that's kind of like my side gig right now that I kind of see becoming the main gig eventually.
Should I be addressing you as Dr. Martin?
I am a doctor, but I don't like it. I don't, especially like you're on an airplane and everyone's like, "Oh, is there a doctor here?" And it's like, "No, I'm not. I'm not. Don't get it twisted."
It's like it's just the paperwork.
Yeah, it's 3 letters, not two, right?
Oh my god. Like, it's amazing to me because y'all are doing what I think is so needed in this space, which is you're bridging the gap, generationally on how to reach your audience. You're approaching everything with enthusiasm to grow your followings like y'all have in such a short period of time. I want to talk about, consistency, and then also, you bleed through with your attitude. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really ever see anything negative come out of either one of y'all from any of your content. You know what I mean? Like, you're excited
Don't
about
get
it
me
all.
started on in vivo CAR T cells.
No,
I'll get negative.
Or dispatch
Or
bio.
dispatch bio. I call it a responsible critique. That's we'll just keep it at that.
Well, before coming on to LinkedIn, I mean, did you? I hear a lot of people tell this, even people, folks that are older than me, but they just assume LinkedIn is just like where you go if you're looking for a job, and that to me is not it at all. I mean,
Times
that's
are
like,
changing, Chris. Times are
yeah,
Ben is the expert here. Ben, some of the things that Ben will say things about LinkedIn sometimes that I'm like, that's not gonna happen. And then within a week, it's like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. This actually works. Like building, having because I think that you're right. LinkedIn was initially the place where you go and get a job. It's kind of like the glorified Indeed or the glorified like Glassdoor. But I think it's really turning into like the social media channel where you can like go and find advice and find coaching and like get a lot of like technical people like to live on LinkedIn. It's kind of like the polished version of Twitter, kind of
yeah,
minus all of the politics.
well, exactly. I mean, I got onto LinkedIn in 2012 because I went to go work for a recruiter in a very niche area, and I recruited senior level independent SAP contract consultants. And that was the only social media platform that we were allowed to be on
Mhm.
at work because that's where we'd find our consultants. And I've seen over the last, decade plus, them grow with the video content, and it's more like the community. And especially over the last couple of years, I kind of studied social media to a certain extent that certain demographics and certain age groups, not all of them are on all the different platforms. If you're within biotech, biotherapeutics, a lot of things we're talking about, LinkedIn is the space. If you're into politics, depending on where you're at, that might be X or Twitter. A lot of the baby boomers that barely have any social media, it just might be like just Facebook. And then you got a lot of the younger generations, college kids, they're only TikTok and Instagram and so forth and so on. And so being able to branch across a wider spectrum to find your audience. Do y'all follow Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V?
So Gary V is the reason that I first started posting on LinkedIn.
My man.
Back in the day, I saw a little clip from his. I wish I could find it again. I haven't been able to. Where he was just saying, "Hey, do you want to become known inside of your industry? Two words: provide value. Show up week in and week out, and be extremely useful to other people inside of your space. You do that." People will start to know who you are because you've been useful and everyone else is just sitting around and doing nothing.
I think I would add a third word to that: consistently provide value.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to lead into. I mean, did you have to write out like a calendar, for content and on how often you're going to post, how the length, all of that? How did you build your strategy around that?
So for me, it was pretty rudimentary. One thing I learned very, very quickly was the idea that I wanted to do it like to Jeff's point. I want to provide value, yes, but I want to do it consistently. So you don't go to the gym the first day you go to the gym and go try to bench press 225 pounds for reps. It's not going to happen.
I
You
still can't do
literally,
that.
yeah, I can't do that either.
I can't do it
For
either.
the record, I'm trying. You go to the gym and you go do some sort of light workout that you won't be dying from for the next 2 weeks so that you can come back a couple days from now. And so that's really the approach that needs to be taken with LinkedIn too. When you're early and you don't know what you're doing and you're not going to get a lot of engagement, the most important thing you can do is do something that you can do consistently. And so for me, I was at the time like what, 25, 26, 27, and I had spent way too much time in university looking at and making memes. So I figured that's where I'll start. I'll do a meme a week on LinkedIn. No one else seems to be doing memes. And if I do them for science, maybe people will be like, I haven't seen any memes in science. This is great. Again, just got pity likes inside of the office. But that's what I did. For the first like 4 or 5 months of being on LinkedIn, I did one post a week and it was a meme explaining some different component of science, usually related to the industry, usually related to the company that I was working for. And then once I was okay with that cadence and it was just kind of part of my weekly routine that I'm going to be posting a meme this week, got to find something. Once that routine was down pat, I had heard from other people inside of the industry, they're always saying, "Oh man, I'm so busy at my job now. I don't have time to stay up to date on the literature. I wish I could find recent papers that I can read through." And I was like, "Well, I got a bit of extra time.
Oh,
I'll go find a paper a week, read it through, kind of synthesize the main takeaways, and then post the paper PDF with those takeaways." And that's the second piece of content I started doing per week. And that really started to blow up. I think the first post that I ever did that got over 100 likes was just a paper that I had provided some takeaways from. And so when you start consistently and you try to learn all along the way of what's working and what's not, and again, just make it your guiding north star to be as useful as possible, and doing that consistently, that's the play. So I wasn't doing 2 posts per week until like 6 months into starting posting on LinkedIn. And then it wasn't until like 8 or 9 months I started doing three. And then after that, scaled to 4 to 5. And now I post somewhere in the range of 5 to 8 times
You're daily
per week.
almost,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
But like, it's easy to be like, oh man, like I need to start doing that. I'm going to start posting 5 to 8 times a week. No, you're seeing the results of 3.5 years of work.
Hmm.
yeah.
Start
Hmm.
small, and then you'll get there eventually. You got to be
Yeah.
patient.
And also, I mean, I would imagine you study your analytics. You start to see like what works, what doesn't work. It's a trial and error kind of thing. It's not like you're just gonna blow up out of like left field. You know what I mean? And so
Hmm.
it's that's consistency. What about you, Jeff?
So mine's a little bit different because I'm trying to think back to why I started. I was like desperate for a job. I was working as in my first postdoc, and like I said, I absolutely hated it, and like my performance was slacking, and I was like, I have to do something, but I don't know what to do. And everyone just kind of says, I think my dad said, just get on LinkedIn, and I think that he said it as like just go on LinkedIn to find a job. Right. Because you can go on LinkedIn and like look for jobs on
Yeah,
LinkedIn, find somebody. But I remember I was seeing not Spencer Knight. He came a little bit later, but there's
he's got a lot of
somebody.
followers.
Yeah. And back then, he's gained like 50,000 in the past year. But back then, a kid named Nicholas Habooks or something like that, Nicholas H, I forget what his name is, but he was posting just like what I now know is like screenshots of market research, like results of like, here's all the companies making CAR T cells for glioblastoma.
Yeah,
And it'd be like 25 little company logos. And then the actual post itself was just like, here's the companies making CAR T cells for glioblastoma. There's no context, like nothing. It was just like a picture, and it would go off. Like it would get like 500 likes. And I remember I sent him a message, and I was like, "How do you make these posts? Like, how do you get these companies?" I thought that he had some kind of program. His answer was something along the lines of, "What do you mean?" And that made me realize, oh, he's just like making these little things, probably in PowerPoint, or like he's pulling some picture from somewhere else and just like posting on LinkedIn. I can do that. I can do this exact thing. And I remember here's where it started. I was posting here and there a little bit, just like super nervous, like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get judged with my 14 followers and they're all my lab mates, right? Um, I posted one time, I forget what his name is, but he was a advisor or like a founding member of Achilles Therapeutics. He's a British guy. He wrote an article in Nature Biotech, like a little like editorial article in
yeah.
Nature Biotech, and it was like, "Oh, I'm now a famous scientist, but I almost quit my PhD. It was so hard, I almost quit." Da 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 da. And I read it at like 8 p.m. one night and posted it on LinkedIn, like a little comment that just said, if you're a PhD student, don't give up. Like everyone was there. I didn't get, for my dissertation work, I didn't get the first piece of like real data until a year before I graduated. And I was there for 6.5 years. So I spent 4.5 years, 5.5 years basically doing nothing. I posted that on LinkedIn and I woke up in the morning with like 800 likes on the post. And it was shared like 1,000 times, da 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 da. And I was like,
Wow.
what? I'm famous now. I think I'm famous, and that gave me the motivation to like start really posting more often. And then at the beginning of 2024, I did like what I called my first like biotech analyst project, where I basically found a paper that had all of the companies making IL-2 cytokine therapies for cancer, and I looked into all the different companies that people had mentioned, and I made a little like chart of how IL-2 is being made, like non-alpha IL-2s and all kinds of different stuff. Made a little graphic, and I had a blast doing it. Posted that, and that went off. And I remember thinking this is going to do really well. And that was the first time where I made a post thinking this is very valuable, and I posted it, and it did well. And I was like, I can do this, and it was fun. And I had no idea in my head. I was like, I didn't have an idea of like, if I keep doing this, I'll be able to make my own company and be a scientific communicator. No, it was literally just like, this is fun and I hate my job and screw it. I'm just going to do this instead. And I spent more time, I swear, I spent more time making LinkedIn posts than doing my actual job. And eventually my postdoc mentors were like, my first postdoc mentor, she approached me in lab and she was like, just so you're a postdoc, you're not like a social media influencer. Like I'm paying you to do postdoc stuff, so stop this. And I didn't, and I'm no longer there. So like
Yeah,
put two and two together, I guess. But
exactly.
yeah, my LinkedIn, and then my posts were much more like I'm going to just pick a random thing, like let's say tumor activated checkpoint inhibitors for cancer, right? And I'm
Uh,
going to go and try and find like 10 companies that are doing that make a little like picture because people love to see the picture with the company logos on them.
Graphics.
Make a little picture, do a little chart or whatever, post that, and like it did really well for like 7 or 8 months. And like I said, I went from having like 1,000 followers to like 10 or 12,000 followers from like January to like May of 2024. And
That's
eventually you
impressive.
get people to like DM you like, "Hey, what do you do? Like, can you help us? We have, we you made this awesome figure for this NK cell thing. We have an NK cell company. Can you make us a little figure for our deck?" And I'd say, "Sure." And I was doing it for free for a long time, and that eventually kind of gave me the confidence to say, "Yeah, for $1,000." And then I kind of went up and up and up and up and up until people were like, "What can we pay you to like just be on retainer for us?" And that's how it all started. And it all came from LinkedIn.
Dude, that's fantastic because there's you got to take a lot of complicated information and simplify it. And that's something that both of y'all are extremely well at. Because for like a patient population, for example, like they have no clue about any of this that we're talking about. One being like extremely active on LinkedIn is like your primary form of like social media. People like hear about influencers. I know they assume it's TikTok and Instagram and so forth, but I'm on like 6 different platforms, and LinkedIn's where I have like the most interaction and the followers, and has generated all the business that I do. I don't
Mhm.
do a lot of business. I'm, looking folks like y'all, for guidance. But there's also the next generation coming up. In order to get into a cellular therapy field, whether you're going into oncology, you're getting your doctorate, you're doing communications, marketing, whatever it is, you usually, from what I understand, have to have a little bit of like a biology background or an architecture background or something. And then most people, from what they tell me, just stumble into cellular therapies by chance. There's not like an actual class or field, but they're
Track.
not being taught that at a younger age. Like, hey, there are these advanced treatments that are one-time treatments, curative treatments. I'm very heavy about using that word curative, but me, that's the future. Like things when considering like chemotherapies and things that have been around for decades and decades to that's out. This is in. And how else are people going to learn about it? And something that I noticed through both of y'all's profiles is brand generation and scientific storytelling. Got to be able to visualize it.
I think that one of the issues that I've found is that there's one of two things will happen. In order to tell the scientific story, you need to know the science really, really, really well. And people either think that to do scientific communication, or let's put it this way, scientific communications is for the people who wanted to be scientists, but just weren't smart enough to actually go and do the science. I literally couldn't agree less. It's like there's the quote from Albert Einstein, or it's attributed to Albert Einstein that says he says that if you can't explain it to your grandmother, you don't understand it well enough yourself, right?
Exactly.
And then I think that that's the first problem. A lot of people are like kind of it's like embarrassing to go into scientific communications. If I'm a good scientist and I'm smart, I'm not gonna like stoop down to go and be a communicator and like make websites. That's
Like
like
it's out
below
of their
me.
comfort zone, essentially. Be
And
like,
not even
I
comfort
just
zone. It's just like they look down on it. It's like if I've been gifted with the intelligence and the ability to think about these things and do the experiments and like go and do the science, I'm not gonna go and stoop down and do communications. That's for like the people who couldn't do science. So one of the things is like the people who are actually knowledgeable of the science, they tend to look down on communications, which is the first thing. And the second thing is that scientists also not underestimate, but they don't see the value in communicating their science to non-scientists. A lot of, especially in academia, it's like they live in this ecosystem and I can explain my science to another cell biologist or like a cancer immunologist. And why do I need to go and explain it to like anybody else? That's fine in academia. But the second that you turn towards like the actual real world, not many people here are going to know what you're talking about. And if you can't communicate, it's like speaking a different language. Like you might be a
100%.
genius, but if you're in America and can't speak English well, or it's probably not a good example, but if you can't speak the language and you can't communicate your ideas, no matter what you have going on in your head, it doesn't matter. No one's going to care. So
100%.
but there's those two things. You need to have people who like understand the science extremely, extremely well, and then also appreciate the value of the communication. And it's hard to get that in one person on.
You hit the nail on the head right there. Like you were mentioning, speaking to like an elderly person, I always try to say, if I had to teach my my youngest like niece or nephew about the treatment that Uncle Chris did. I always use that Pac-Man analogy, something that they can relate to.
Sure.
Like that's essentially it. You take something that's complicated and usually like outside of like your zone to be like, man, I don't have that science knowledge or background, but you simplify it. And
And a lot of times, so one of my clients, she didn't mean to say this and have it be so profound, but it stuck with me for a long time. She said that people like to understand what's going on in their body because
they
it's one of
do,
those things where like
they
we
do.
don't have any idea. It's like crazy. And if you have a disease, even it's like amplified, right? It's like I don't have any clue what's happening to me and it's causing a lot of problems. And I want to really know what's going on. What is this drug that I'm taking going to do? Can I help it in some way? Like what's happening inside me? I just want to know and like visualize what's happening. And that's where like scientific communications to patients is like super, super important. We want you to know what's happening, why it's going to work, why it might not work, if there's anything you can do about it. Like that's super important. And a lot of people underestimate and undervalue that.
That's 100% because that is every single patient I talk to. That's one of the most frustrating things about being a patient, no matter what your disease is, cancer, rare disease, whatever, is understanding it. It's not like they had a prior knowledge of it. People just don't grow up knowing about all these different, diseases that you could get or may not get.
Mhm.
I mean, who anticipates like I'm definitely gonna get this one day? Like I need to know everything about it. Like it just doesn't happen. Like, and then you learn by default. So that's like, I mean, this is a field where I feel is extremely important across the board because people want their visual learners, I think, just by nature. But to be able to take something complicated and simplify it to where anybody can understand it is, I think, a highly underrated, untapped, field.
So I have a really really good example that we actually just had the conversation last week with this person, and it's like one of the best examples of the power of scientific communications that I've come across in my whole career. And it was Neob Therapeutics, Ben. So if I could have like 2 minutes, I can give you a really good example of like the how scientific communications you can take a super complicated therapeutic like what Neob is doing, and you can Pedro did it on the thing. You can explain it in a way that anybody, my 12-year-old niece can understand what this thing does.
This was last Friday's episode, right?
Yeah.
I watched
And
that, yeah.
and what Neob has is this it's tumor homing bacteria that are engineered with biosensors to detect hypoxia and nutrient deficiency, and they release enzymes that degrade the extracellular matrix to like break down the fibrous network of solid tumors to allow for drug diffusion and immune cell infiltration to help with like immunotherapy and chemotherapy. That's like the dial to like 7 on the scientific end, right? In terms of the communication. But Pedro said this. He said, "We are using bacteria to turn solid tumors into soft tumors because drugs can't get into solid tumors. But if you soften them up, the drugs can get in and they can get in deeper.
I
Who
remember
can't
listening to
understand
that
that?
and it made so much
And
sense.
Right.
we went beyond that, right? You can simplify that even further. You're like, imagine that the solid tumor is like a castle that's got these massive stone walls around it, and the guys that you're sending to go attack the guys who live inside of the castle only have like sharpened sticks. Well, good luck. They're not going to be able to get through a
They're
stone wall.
just gonna
So,
bounce.
what do you need to do? You need to call in an airstrike.
Yep.
You need to
Break
call
down the
in something
barriers.
that's designed to get through that barrier, blow it out from the inside, and now give you the ability to enter in and clean up the rest.
Essentially get like a bunker buster up in
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So, but then if you were somebody who was taking, let's say that Neob initiates some clinical trial and they have their genetically engineered biosensor utilizing microbes to degrade ECM, right? If I was a patient taking that and I had no background in biology, I would just think, I don't know, it's a drug, I take it, it's supposed to, I don't know what it's doing. But if you said you have a solid tumor and in order to kill the solid tumor, we have to get immune cells and drugs into it, and because the tumor is so solid, the cells and the drugs just can't get in. And what this is going to do is make it softer. And it's going to allow the cells to get in and it can allow the drugs to get in. It's like,
Then
okay,
it makes sense.
it makes complete sense. I'm more enthusiastic about it, which, Chris, I don't know how far down the road I want to get, but I could imagine that your attitude during your treatments, and we had this conversation about patient compliance, Ben, The patient's attitude about their therapy can significantly impact the outcomes.
Think so. I mean, I was that guy to where the odds for my survival were so like grim that I was gonna do everything that I could to empower myself. And I had this attitude of I'm going out swinging, and it's not for a lack of effort. And so I'm going to give it my all. And I just assumed that the next drug or the treatment that I was getting was the best possible thing for me. And I was all in. And I stayed active. I worked. I often say body in motion stays in motion. Like I was not just going to sit around being stagnant, but I strongly believe that my attitude towards the therapies and the treatments made a huge difference. Now, at the same time, I didn't completely understand exactly what they all the complications and the science around it. I just knew that it was using my own immune system in regards to immunotherapies and checkpoint inhibitors, and that it wasn't the traditional and classic chemotherapies and such, which I just thought and assumed, you get a cancer or something, you cut it out, might have some radiation and do chemo. But I was like, okay, well, you're using my own immune system to help target and find what is wrong and you'll go and attack it. And that kind of made some sense. But when it finally came time for me to do till, it was the Pac-Man analogy that made sense. And I tell everybody I thought my oncologist was crazy because he wanted to take the exact thing that made me sick. Wasn't going to alter it. He was just going to make a lot more of it and then
Right.
give it to me. And I was like, I don't know, but it's either this or hospice. And I am not doing that.
Jeez.
And so, and then the more I thought about it, I was like, the more it made sense. I was like, there's no known cause for, my type of cancer. And so they can't tell you or tell me like how to prevent it. But it's whatever it was, that, caused me to be sick. Cell division. I started, learning a little bit about, some of that. And I'm like, well, whatever it was that caused it, that's where the answer lies. So it's got to make sense. And it did, and it eradicated it. And to me, that's the only thing that makes sense anymore. Like, I couldn't imagine getting diagnosed now with the same thing here 7 years later and going just naively into it. Like, it makes
Right.
the most sense to me. And it's relaying that
Right.
message that, like, if you had an opportunity to do one treatment one time and it works, why would you not want to try that? And then if it didn't work, you got all these other things in your back pocket. You can try those. But
See, I would wonder now that we're having this conversation, and it's like I would wonder if there are studies that have been done or data available to conduct the study between patients that were on the clinical trial where the communication was super good and like they had all kinds of like patient information and like
Memes.
stuff to just explain how it's going to work, why you're getting it, why your tumor qualifies for this exact therapy versus patients who didn't get that. And the communication was kind of lacking and it was confusion and there's kind of like this black box of an injection or whatever, if the outcomes are objectively different. I would say that the communication can probably improve patient compliance because you're more enthusiastic, you can believe in it better. What's happening, you want to go get the therapy, you want to make sure you do it the right way. And patient compliance is obviously going to impact outcomes. So
I
it's
would
like,
totally concur with that hypothesis.
right. And people who think that like, oh, communications don't actually affect like the therapeutic outcomes. Think again. It might actually be one of the biggest. If you can improve patient compliance, you're going to improve your therapeutic efficacy. And you can improve patient compliance by educating the patients on why and how their therapy is working.
And again, like Jeff and I had this conversation recently, and he was talking about someone he knew who was on a medication. They're supposed to take one pill in the morning, one pill at night, and they didn't want to feel sick through the day, so they just took two pills at night. And
Yeah, it
it's
was like take two a day, and they would take two
Is it,
before bed.
right,
but is
but
it is
imagine,
it it's prescribed to take it every 12 hours so you space it out so you get
yeah,
throughout
Right.
your metabolism, right? I mean,
But if the person knew why it was working and how it was
exactly.
working, and you need to take
yes.
one in the morning and one at night, that's how it's going to work. Don't just take
And
two a
also
day.
like how the mechanism of how this is working, this is why it's going to make you sick, and this is why you're going to feel this way, yes, but here's why. And it's actually a good thing that you're feeling sick because of this pathway or because of this
Right.
mechanism
That's
that's
a good
getting
point
activated.
too. And
That's a
I
very
think
good point.
even like let's say now this is probably too close to home, Chris, so I apologize in
No,
advance.
no,
But
nothing's off the
let's
table,
say
man.
you have there's two people and one person has like a random pain in their leg, right? And they have no idea why it's there. And it hurts and it's And then the next person has the exact same pain and the exact same spot, but they remember bashing their leg against like their car door 2 days ago, right? That second person, their leg will hurt less and it will occupy less space in their brain because, oh yeah, it's just I banged my leg on the car door. Whatever. It's going to go away. It's fine. But that first person, it could wear on them and their leg could hurt worse. And that it's that mystery. And it does affect like your brain can play tricks on you. And your brain can also affect your physiology. So like
100%, 100%.
right. So I feel like I would love to have some actual like data on does proper scientific communication influence patient psychology leading to increases in patient compliance and better attitudes which will lead to literally better therapeutic efficacy.
I dude, you hit the nail on the head with that. That's like literally one of the biggest reasons why I'm trying to do, everything that I'm doing is because I want people to be proactive instead of reactive. They understand,
Mm,
at least a little bit about some of it as it starts and not just going into something like naively, then, they can at least, feel a little bit of control. But it's that unknown of why is this hurting? Why is this bothering me? That worry factor, can take its toll.
right.
Coming back to, like LinkedIn, for example, within this space, you have advocacy industry, clinicians, doctors, and so forth. And I kind of put up a little poll about this not long ago, but it's, how many people that are very entrenched and very engaged within LinkedIn are on other platforms. And not just that, but are actively engaging on those other platforms.
Mm,
Like, that I think is so critically important because not everybody is everywhere. And I see a lot of industry talk to industry, but not like intentional, like reaching out to the patients on their
mhm.
level so they're understanding. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
anticipate you're not going to get a lot of patients who are thinking, yes, I'll go to LinkedIn to learn about cancer therapies, right?
No,
Um,
they're probably asking what's LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if we even back up to earlier in our conversation, right, when we were wondering about like what's kind of the advantage of LinkedIn versus other platforms, yes, for patients, it's not going to be super valuable. But when you're thinking about like business to business opportunities, and even when it comes to jobs and whatnot, you mentioned it earlier, but you said, Chris, that you're only allowed on like a work computer, LinkedIn, but like all of these other social media sites were restricted. I think that's a huge reason why LinkedIn can be such a powerful tool for the B2B space, right? Is just there's lots of people, if they are at work, they can't go on those other social media websites, but they can go on LinkedIn. And why are they going on LinkedIn? They're in the context of work, they're at their office, they're not looking for, funny cat videos. Since they're at work, their mindset is work. They're more likely to be looking for information that's going to be relevant to them in their day job. And so
Yeah.
if you're able to come in there and provide something that is mildly entertaining and educational and is relevant to their industry, there is a huge opportunity there. But to your point, for patients, LinkedIn's probably not the best spot. You probably want to be looking at a platform like Instagram or TikTok,
Facebook.
Facebook, definitely.
Yeah. I have 6 different platforms and including a YouTube channel, and the same short reels that I do through this Till Talks, I post those across all 6 different platforms, and it turns out that the most analytics, the most impressions, the most views that I get come from YouTube Shorts, and 90% of them are non-followers, and I would have never have guessed that, you know what I mean? Like, I only have, like, 40 subscribers or something, but they're not subscribing, but they're watching.
Right.
And Gary V had mentioned this on one of his platforms recently, but one of the most untapped market for people that are looking for investors, I believe is Facebook, because you have that generation that's near retirement or somewhat towards retirement. They have the profile. They might not be terribly active, but maybe they're investing in oil and gas or, whatever, but they're not aware about cell and gene therapy. I mean,
So
like,
so I'm actually not on Facebook for various reasons. I'm banned. Do you
love it.
Yeah.
Facebook jail.
Yeah. I'm in Facebook like hell. I'm
You're
dead.
purgatory over there.
Yeah.
That's
So
funny.
do they have like the 9 by 16 short like reels like TikTok and like YouTube shorts?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I feel like companies should be making those things. You can get like what we do on our show is we bring a founder onto the show and we'll get them in the context just like this, but ours is like live, a live chat and everything.
Yeah.
And we just tell them like, what are you doing? Why is it better? Who's the competition? Why are you different? Like, give us the whole thing. and we get an hour conversation and just chop that thing up into like 10 or 15 like 9 by 16 1.5 to 2 minute clips and just dump them into those algorithms. Because I'm not sure, like I saw a video yesterday actually about the YouTube guy named Pirate Software. Do you know who that is?
Sounds familiar.
So he's a
Does sound
guy,
familiar.
apparently he's in some big controversy right now. I don't know, but he the thing that caught my eye was that he went from having like 13,000 subscribers on YouTube to 1.3 million over the course of 2 months. And the difference that he made was he was taking his live streams and he was making YouTube shorts and just dumping like 20 a day into the YouTube short algorithm. And eventually, like you said, people just kind of are randomly scrolling like aimlessly, and they'll watch. You'll get people who would never have found you ever before, who are watching your shorts, and they subscribe to your channel just because of your shorts. They don't even watch
Yeah.
your YouTube channel, your videos.
Well,
So I
that's
think that
exact.
if companies did that and just take 15 of these videos and just dump them into Facebook, dump them into YouTube, like we and like the thing is like you can have channels that grow. This is a little bit of a pitch for us, but like if we
Oh,
grew
please
our
do.
channel, if we grew our channel on LinkedIn and on YouTube, and then we would just dumping those videos into our channel, people will just be randomly coming across like a minute and a half video of Pedro talking about the mission at Neob. And those people would never be able to see
Yeah. They,
that kind of thing ever in their life.
well, exactly. Like and this is how I ended up coming across that was when I pre-schedule my content, and I've discovered that 30 seconds or less, captions,
Yep.
and I always focus on my guest and I have my brand with my logo in the corner, but twice a day, every day, and it grows and it grows and it grows and it grows and it grows, and it's that consistency we're
That
talking about.
consistency.
And I mean, on one platform you might get X amount of analytics, da 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 da, and on some others, where you don't even expect it, it explodes.
Exactly. And it can be like kind of random too. Like we were talking about, who's the guy, Ben, who's posting like 15 times a day on LinkedIn now?
Bill Gadless.
Bill
Yes,
Gadless. That guy will post like 15 times a day, and every like 10 or 20 posts, one will go viral. And Ben said, okay, so like once a day, basically. It's like, yeah, he basically goes like semi-viral once a day just from being consistent, posting like crazy. And you don't want to dump out junk, but the key is to get content like well, and then just dip your bucket into it all the time. And it's all like super good water, like a show like this where you just kind of chop up little videos. It's so weird. I don't know how you feel about it, Ben, but I feel like it's so weird that we basically are making a living now being social media influencers, especially you. Like you're like the social media influencer for the influencers, basically. I mean,
It's a weird
not the
spot to be in, man.
influencers. The definition of influencer here is being used a little loosely, but like the point I'm trying to make is that we live in a different era. Like I'm 32. I'm not super old, but I can remember thinking back, like when I was 12, 13, my parents would always say, "Stop playing video games. You can't make money playing video games." Okay, guess what?
people are making
Yes, you
money
can.
playing
You
video
definitely
games.
can do it now, right? Like a lot of money if you're good at it, right?
I
This is
mean,
the same way where it's just like there's so many opportunities that you wouldn't like our millennial brains are just now kind of beginning to form into this.
that's where the military recruits, people that fly drones,
Right.
or people that grew
Right.
up gaming. I'm
Right. It's like
serious.
guys who like drove RV cars around or RC cars around are
Yeah,
now like blowing up buildings
100%.
in Afghanistan. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole new era, and what traditionally was like TV, magazines, so forth, those kinda ads. I cut off cable, like, a couple of years ago. I got the rabbit ears hooked up in case I wanna flip it on
Right.
or whatever, and every TV now has built-in whatever. I mean, like, there's so many platforms out there to consume content that you don't have to do what you've always done before. It doesn't have to cost. You just have to, you just have to get out there and do it.
Right.
You
And
know what I
that's the
mean?
thing too. It's like where normally to make like a 30-second commercial would cost you $500,000 plus. Now it's like you can go on there and just most people are on YouTube and TikTok. And guess what? To post a YouTube video is literally free. Like, or you can pay people like us to make it really good, right? Like it's the cost is way down, the reach is so much better, like, and there's so many different areas to get your stuff, your story told, and it always amazes me like how different it is nowadays than like what my brain thinks.
Yeah, there's 2 things, it's being organic and being authentic. People don't
Authentic.
wanna feel like they're being sold.
Especially nowadays with like there's so much AI generated slop content being made that if you're an authentic, genuine person and you make it known like this is a real person talking to you, even that will set you apart from the majority of people who are making content these days.
100%.
So like the bar's kind of low actually. Just like don't fake it. Right.
I was about asking y'all this earlier. I know you said you're in Facebook purgatory
Mhm.
or jail or whatnot, but outside of LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, I mean, are y'all on any of those other platforms, you know? And I mean, I figured the content that y'all do with Bio to Bedside would be very helpful and useful, especially if you were just chopping up little 30-second clips. What I'm saying, like the 9 to 16, I mean, and like throwing them across those other platforms. I mean, it doesn't cost anything. Like,
Yeah, we're planning on it. So me and Ben have been kind of cooking up some stuff recently, and it's currently like in the witch's brew. It isn't finished yet, but I think that probably in the next few months we're going to be tapping into those, into YouTube really hard, probably TikTok really hard. The 9 by 16 style videos are like really powerful, and they're easy to make
super easy.
if you structure like your conversations the right way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And, like, absolutely, I'll probably make 10 to 12 30-second clips, 30 to 60-second max, at least out of this whole conversation. I mean, and that'll call, I'll send that across all 6 different platforms.
Right on.
I'm not in any meta jail or anything.
I also yeah, I also wonder if there's some kind of psychology, that people, how can I say it? The 9 by 16 format, I think that our brains just automatically register it as being a short video, right? So even if it's like a minute and a half or 2 minutes long, if you make it in the 9 by 16 style video versus like a long, like full screen video, I feel
Yeah,
like people are more willing to watch those because I know it's a short video, even though it could be like 3 minutes long, right? So I'm interested to know like if there's any kind of psychology behind that. There has to be.
I would imagine so. But when it comes to getting the message across, like, it's self-advocate. I want people to learn about clinical trials, and I want them to learn about cellular therapies, and I could do this all day long on LinkedIn with other people that are already familiar with it, but it's the people that are not familiar with it, and the YouTube, I'm 1000% with you right there. When I have a little bit of a backlog of content, like, kinda always in the reserve, so that way I'm not running out. When I launched Till Talks, I had, like, at least, like, 6 recordings before, like, I launched the
Mm,
first couple of them. But it's keeping that bank full so you can keep pumping it out. But it's consistency, like, I mean, been like 30 here, I wrote it down. 32,141, and it's now maybe 3 years, like, and
right.
I guarantee it's because of the authenticity of and consistency. You're
It's a
organic.
Yeah, and it snowballs. It snowballs because especially on a platform like LinkedIn where any interaction automatically will like share it to that person's followers. Like it's so easy to grow on LinkedIn, and I'm not super sure how it works on like Twitter and Facebook, but on LinkedIn, like if I used to do a thing where I would make a post and I had like 1,000 followers, I would send it to Spencer Knight and just
And then
tell
have
him,
him
"Can you
share it.
like this for me? Just like it. Because if you
Yeah,
like it, it will show up as Spencer Knight likes this on his feed to
and
his
then,
30,000 followers, and then my post would blow up and I get followers." So,
like,
yeah.
when Ryan Lee from Facilitate, you know, does any of that, I see the same kinda analytics pop up.
I'm sure that Spencer wouldn't have liked it if he didn't actually like it, but I would just tell him, like, "Here's this post. You probably like it." Right?
Let me know if you don't. I'll
Yeah.
change my
If you hate it,
strategy.
I'll delete it. But yeah.
So did both of y'all go to DIA this year?
No,
No? Was it, or but you did go to bio, right?
I went to
Ben
bio.
went to
Yes.
bio.
You went to
I'm
bio?
I'm lame. I went to Advanced Therapies Week in January, and then I went to like Innate Killer Summit in San Diego in like March. I haven't been out of the house since, basically.
I gotta ask both of y'all,
Yeah.
what's on your radar next in terms of conferences and events?
So might be going to something in Europe. We'll see later on in the year. They're talking with some companies who might want to bring me out. Aside from that, again, still the business is still early days, and it's like
Mhm.
I unless you want to go to one of the big ones.
Right. What we want to do, this is again one more plug for
Yes.
Bout a
Yeah.
Bedside. We want to partner with conference organizers to either set up a booth or to get permission to walk around with my little camera here and do like live interviews at like an ASGCT or at ASH or like some kind of big oncology conference or biotech conference. And like that will be more content. Just like if you don't want to come on the show for an hour, if you're going to be at ASH, just let's meet by the Starbucks coffee and I'll pull my camera out and we'll get you for 10 minutes. Like that's going to be huge cuz whatever, like you're already here, you're all dressed up, right?
Yeah.
You're thinking about you're thinking about science, thinking about biotech. Just give me 5 minutes and I'll get you 3 short videos and a profile on Bio to Bedside. like so,
Like y'all are plugged in with Advanced Therapies think tank, right? Didn't y'all do
yeah.
some recordings during ATW on that?
Ben was living his future self being a news anchor.
He's
At
This
very
is the
good at
6
it.
o'clock news. I'm Walter Cronk.
It's stellar. I kind of then this all came from LinkedIn, but I kind of kept like a list of all the different conferences and the cell therapy specific organizations and so forth. It was kind of like a wish list, and it was a learning curve for like at least the first year plus. Where I'm like, I can't afford to go to any of these things. I'm not plugged in, you know. And then over the last year or so, I've been able to kind of wiggle my way into a handful of them. Like if ATW didn't come to Dallas, I don't know if I would have been able to go. You know what I mean? But I've had ISCT, ASGCT, like there's a handful of them all on my radar because I want to be entrenched and engaged and involved in that realm in the community. I mean, um,
Well, I'm
but
sure you'll be seeing us around because we're gonna try and get out way more often.
Yes.
It's always fun. It's just it's expensive and you need a reason to go. Right?
Yeah.
yeah, well, essentially, got to get what like sponsorships, supporters,
Yeah.
so forth.
Yeah.
This world's an expensive place to exist in, and they're not handing everything out for free, unfortunately. I mean,
Right.
because I'd be like raising my hand right here, like,
Yeah.
hey.
Yeah.
I'll get calls from the different organizations. They'll be emailing me about wanting to come to their event. And it's like, I can't come out of pocket to do this. I can't even afford to get like reimbursed for it. So, like, I'll
Right.
go. I want to go. It's exciting stuff. There's a lot of breakthroughs coming through, especially during this last year. I've noticed there's a lot more conversation around the solid tumor space, especially like with CAR T getting into solid tumors. And I had somebody tell me recently, you know, like CAR T since 2017 has had a handful of approvals. There's been a lot of conversation around it. Till in solid tumors, they've been on deck, and it's, you know, they're up next to bat. And so I'm very aggressively trying to be actively engaged within that space and everyone involved with it. So just throwing that out there, anybody
Right.
listening.
Right. I think the till space, if I had to give any kind of prediction about the future of tills, I think that it's a half-baked idea, but here it is. The integration of AI machine learning powered neoantigen identification, and then the ability to take that information from patients' tumors in real time and then to expand those lymphocytes in the till product specifically and then infuse that product as opposed to just taking all of the lymphocytes, expanding everything, and putting those back in. Because the biology to me, again, I'm not a TIL expert, but the biology to me would say that any lymphocytes in the tumor that were actively combating cancer cells are going to be more exhausted and in a less immunologically active state than lymphocytes that were in the tumor that weren't attacking cancer cells. So when you take the whole population out, now you've got the cells that are relevant, the cancers, the anti-cancer lymphocytes, and the irrelevant, the totally like bystander T cells. If you expand that whole population, the ones that are able to expand more are the ones that are not the ones that were already active in the tumor. So you're going to get a disproportional expansion of irrelevant bystander T cells, bystander lymphocytes than the ones that you're actually looking for. So the expansion of the ones that are anti-cancer is super important. But the technology I don't think is there right now. One of the companies that I was really looking into for TIL therapy was Achilles Therapeutics. And they had a super interesting way of expanding the anti-cancer lymphocytes. But it involved like autologous dendritic cells and it involved all kinds of super complicated stuff that's expensive and the technology is just not there. But in like 5 years, if we get better at rapid identification of neoantigens in patients' tumors, and then the ability to activate those T cells specifically, using companies like Q Biopharma. I have predictions about these things. I think that the TIL space might make a massive impact in solid tumors if you can figure those two things out. Identification of neoantigens and expansion specifically of those anti-cancer T cells in the TIL product.
So
Game
talking
changer.
about neoantigens, the specific till that I did, they need feeder cells from a healthy blood donor, and they use those feeder cells to help pinpoint the specific T cell within my cancer cell that went rogue. So then they can grow that one into the billions and then throw it back. I mean, I'm sure you are, but how familiar are you with that process?
So I'm not super sure what Iovance does exactly. I know I actually didn't know that they did any kind of like specific expansion of a specific subset of the actual lymphocytes. I didn't know that they did that. I'm sure that there's some kind of processes that you can explicit or I guess like preferentially expand a certain subset of the T cells, but I'm not super sure like the actual biological mechanism that they're kind of leveraging there.
Yeah, I gotcha. From what I understood and the way they explained it to me, it was, nothing was modified for me. They
Yeah.
literally just took the cells, that went rogue and started causing all the problems and then grew that into the billions, and just,
Yeah.
gave
So
me my brand new army. And so,
right.
there's no added proteins or anything like that.
Yeah. The idea is actually very elegant, and it actually the idea for TILs predates CAR T cells, and it's like one of the things that like if you look into CAR T cell, the history of CAR T cells, the use of TILs, I think at Memorial Sloan Kettering, if I'm not mistaken, was like the precedent to say, hey, we can program immune cells to go in and kill cancer. And the success of TILs is what sparked the CAR T industry. But the idea behind TILs is really, really elegant. You basically say there are going to be T cells, and they call them lymphocytes. So I guess you can get NK cells and B cells as well.
Yeah.
But really, it's T cells. There are T cells in the tumor, and they're there because they're actively fighting against the tumor. And if you want, we can take those cells out and we can basically give them new life and you can put them back in. And then they're only going to be those T cells. We know that they're at least like partially relevant to the cancer because they were from the tumor. Only problem is that like cancer ends up becoming, and cancer is very inflammatory to a certain extent, and it will bring in all kinds of different T cells, and they just kind of like sit there. So you're going
Right.
to have a lot of T cells that aren't really doing anything. But I won't get into the weeds with the biology, but I think that, like I said, TILs do have a really big play in solid tumors if we can figure out the antigen identification and the neoantigen specific T cell expansion.
I would love to get more into that, like on a future episode. And then by doing so, explain it in a very simplistic way, like
Yeah,
talking earlier. But that, I mean, I'm fascinated by that. I knew nothing about any of my treatments or therapies until probably 2022-ish, a couple of years after I did it. And then I just started geeking out on it. You know what I mean?
right.
So I'm
Yeah,
super intrigued about y'all being able to kind of, I want to leverage like how you explain the science, so
yeah, for sure.
one, I can understand, but then two, I can pay it forward and pass it forward
Right,
and
right.
so forth and everything. So I know that I believe both of y'all got
I have a
some
1 o'clock that I
engagement,
got to
yeah,
get to.
coming up to and everything. But if you just post up for a quick moment, I'm just gonna say thank you to everybody listening and catch you on the next one. Peace. All right, that concludes today's episode of Till Talks with Chris White as we talk TILs, tumor infiltrating lymphocytes, and all advanced cell and gene therapies. As a reminder, I am not a medical professional or medical expert. I am only a professional and expert on my story and my experience. If you are needing or seeking medical advice or assistance, please reach out to your care team. I'd like to thank my guest today for joining me on Till Talks. To our listeners who have not yet done so already, please follow, comment, subscribe, share, and smash that like button. For more information about Till Talks and related resources, please visit www.tilltalks.com. I'm Chris White. As always, sending love to everybody. Peace.